On the edge of the town stood an old school, now nothing more than a ruin. Broken windows, rusted gates, and walls covered with moss all testified to its desolation. Children no longer played there, and even adults avoided passing by. People said the school was cursed, for it had suddenly shut down one day and never reopened. Yet, amidst this emptiness, there was something strange. Every evening, a stray dog would come and sit there, always by the broken iron gate, in the same spot, like a silent guard on duty. At first, no one paid attention, but when this became a daily ritual, questions began to stir in people's minds. Who was this dog? Where did it come from, and why did it choose this abandoned place every single day? He never barked, never attacked anyone. He simply sat there in silence, as if waiting for something. The old villagers would say, "This dog is searching for something, or maybe he cannot forget someone." Children were afraid of him, but the pain hidden in his eyes silenced even the elders. He never missed a day. Whether it rained, whether there was a storm, blazing sun, or freezing night, he was always there. His loyalty and mystery unsettled everyone. People began to feel that inside the ruins of that school, there wasn't just emptiness, but also an untold story, and perhaps the key to that story lay with the dog. In the eyes of the people, that dog was no longer just a stray. Slowly, his presence every evening had turned into a puzzle. Some would say, maybe he's just guarding the ruins, as if this place now belongs to him. Others believed, no, he must be coming here every day in search of food. But there was one detail that made everyone stop and think in silence. Every time, the dog carried something in his mouth. In the twilight, when he sat near the crumbling wall, people noticed a small bundle clenched between his teeth. At first, no one paid attention, but when it became a daily pattern, whispers began to spread. Children, half afraid, would whisper, "It looks like he's carrying something that belongs to a spirit." Old women would mutter back, "No, he must be hiding someone's message." Sometimes the bundle looked like it was wrapped in cloth, other times it seemed like an old toy. But no one dared to go near. People only watched from a distance, guessing and speculating. The gleam in the dog's eyes and the certainty in his movements made it seem as though he was fulfilling a secret duty. By now, the whole village had heard about it. Every evening, people would leave their work and gather near the abandoned school just to see what the dog would bring in his mouth this time. The mystery kept growing, and uneasiness filled everyone's heart. It felt as if behind the school's desolation lay a hidden secret, and the key to it was locked inside that bundle the dog carried. One evening, a group of daring teenagers, troubled for weeks by the dog's mysterious behavior, decided they would uncover the truth no matter what. Slowly, they made their way toward the old school. Their steps were hesitant, but curiosity weighed heavier than fear. The whispering wind through broken walls and the echo of empty corridors made their hearts pound even faster. From a distance, they saw the dog coming as usual, the strange bundle clutched gently in its mouth. There was a peculiar caution in its walk, as though it carried out a sacred duty. The teenagers fixed their eyes on its every move. The dog passed through the dilapidated courtyard and headed toward an old classroom with shattered windows. They watched as he placed the bundle softly on the ground. Stranger still, he did not leave it in the open. Instead, he carried it inside the dark, abandoned classroom, setting it carefully in the corner, as if that spot held special meaning. Then he sat at the doorway, alert and vigilant, guarding it like a sentinel. The teenagers whispered among themselves, "Is he hiding treasure? Or someone's belongings?" But the depth in his eyes, the way he sat with such determination at the door, made it clear this was not just the act of an ordinary animal. There was loyalty in it, a purpose. Their questions only grew. What exactly was inside that bundle? And why did this dog guard the deserted room every single day? At last, mustering all his courage, one of the children slowly stepped across the threshold of the dark classroom. The air inside was damp and stale, and faint rays of light filtered through the broken roof, barely reaching the far corner of the room. The dog's vigilant eyes followed the boy, as if silently asking, Will you harm the secret I've been protecting? When the child drew closer, he saw that the bundle, what everyone had assumed to be tattered cloth, was not cloth at all, but a tiny kitten. Fragile and shivering from the cold, its eyes were barely open, and its little body struggled with each breath. The boy gasped and looked more carefully. In the shadowed corner beside it, 2 more kittens were huddled together. Their faint, trembling mews echoed in the silence of the room, like a desperate plea for help. The sight melted the children's hearts. The dog's secret was now revealed. Every day, he carried these fragile kittens wrapped safely in that bundle, then stationed himself at the doorway to guard them, as though he had taken on the role of their mother. The children were stunned. The dog they had thought of as a stray wanderer was, in truth, the guardian of these tiny lives. His eyes held fierce vigilance, but also compassion and warmth. No matter the cost, he would not leave them alone or unprotected. Slowly, the entire truth began to unfold. The dog that people had thought of as mysterious was, in fact, an unseen guardian angel. He had rescued those helpless kittens, creatures who had perhaps been thrown away in the trash or abandoned on the streets, carrying them one by one in his strong jaws to the school. And yet, astonishingly, he had never once harmed them. Every step he took was gentle and cautious, as though he instinctively knew how fragile those tiny lives were. People soon realized that this had been happening for days. Every evening, he would wander through alleys and garbage heaps, searching the shadows. And whenever he heard the faint, trembling cry of a kitten, he would immediately pick it up in his mouth. His teeth were sharp, but his grip was unbelievably tender. Within the warmth of his breath, the kittens felt safe. When he entered the old school, through its broken walls, his demeanor changed. He walked with pride, as though he were bringing his children home. Each time, he placed the kittens carefully in that same classroom and then stationed himself at the doorway, standing guard, as if to say, "You are my responsibility now. No one will harm you." There was weariness in his eyes, but also a strange light. He was alone, yet for those he had chosen to fight for, he had become family. Slowly, the truth began to emerge. The dog that people once thought of as mysterious was, in reality, an unseen angel. He had rescued those helpless kittens, tiny souls who had perhaps been tossed into the trash or abandoned on the streets, and carried them one by one, in his strong jaws to the old school. The astonishing thing was that he never hurt them. Every step he took was soft and careful, as though he instinctively understood how delicate those little lives were. People started to notice that this had been happening for many days. Every evening, he roamed through alleys, garbage heaps, and deserted lanes, searching. Whenever he heard the faint cry of a weak kitten, he would immediately lift it gently in his mouth. His teeth were sharp, yet his grip was impossibly tender. Wrapped in the warmth of his breath, the kitten would feel safe. When he entered through the broken walls of the old school, his entire demeanor changed. He walked with pride, as though bringing his children home. Each time, he placed the kittens carefully in that same classroom, then sat at the doorway like a silent guard, saying without words, "You are my responsibility now. No one will hurt you." In his eyes there was weariness, but also a strange glow. He was alone, yet for those fragile beings he had chosen to protect, he had become a family. The children's eyes widened in astonishment. The dog they had always thought of as just a stray was, in truth, no less than a guardian. He wasn't some creature wandering through ruins. He was the protector of those helpless kittens, the one who had risked his own life to save theirs. The children could hardly believe that the very beings abandoned by humans were now being safeguarded by a stray dog. Slowly, their fear began to fade. They noticed that while the dog stood alert, his eyes carried no hatred, only a quiet longing for trust. When one of the children took out bread and milk from a bag and placed it on the ground, the dog stopped to watch. For a few moments, he hesitated, then cautiously stepped forward. First, he looked at the children, then at the kittens, and finally, he began to eat. In that moment, the children understood. This was no ordinary stray, but a true guardian. Not only did the dog allow them to come closer, but for the first time, It seemed as though he had begun to place his trust in humans. One child filled a small bowl with water from a bottle and set it in front of him. The dog drank, pausing now and then to gently tap the kittens with his paw, as if reassuring them to stay calm. That sight etched itself into the children's hearts forever, a lone dog, carrying out humanity more deeply than most humans ever could. Slowly, the children's story spread throughout the town. People could hardly believe that in the old school, long abandoned and forgotten, a stray dog had been guarding tiny lives. Day by day, small groups of people began to visit. Some brought milk, others carried food boxes, and a few came with blankets. At first, the dog stayed cautious, keeping his distance from strangers. But when he realized they had come to help, he slowly began to let go of his fear. Eventually, word reached a local animal shelter. Their team arrived and, with great care, took the dog and his 3 kittens with them. There, they found clean spaces, medicine, food, and above all, the love and care they had been searching for all along. The dog was no longer alone. He had a family he had once saved, and now humans were ready to give him one too. The people of the town never forgot the sight. That abandoned school, once a symbol of silence and fear, now carried a new story. Whenever anyone passed by, they would say, "Remember, this is where the dog saved the kittens' lives." And softly they would add, "Even in forgotten places, love can build a home." The story became a lesson for the whole town, that humanity isn't just found in humans, but in every living being.